Well, good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be back here in your presence, in your company. We meet here, it's true, every first and third Friday of every month, 7 p.m. So the doors are always open. You know where we are. We're right here. So you have no excuse. And please join us. Come in, sit down, and enjoy the evening with us anytime you want. Somebody noticed that picture behind me. I'm going to talk about Chanukah this morning. This is the halfway through our holiday. So Chag Sameach, happy holidays to everyone. We are halfway through ours. And ours started, I don't know if you heard, this year started on December 25th. I'm going to talk about all of this. There's so much here to unpack. We better get started. I'm going to talk to you about Chanukah, and I'm going to order that in 3 different parts. The first part will be about the history of Chanukah. How did the holiday come to be? We always have to look back in history and figure it out. And then, as we do with all of our holidays, how did the historical aspect of Chanukah become a religious aspect? How we transform history into religious practice? And then from there, we're going to move into the deeper spiritual teachings of the holiday itself. So come with me on that journey if you want. You know, we do that with every holiday. Every holiday in the Jewish tradition starts historically, is transformed into a religious practice, and eventually into a deeper spiritual grounding. The story begins in 329 BCE. So we've been around for a long time. Actually, we've been around, according to historical proof, at least since the year 1200 BCE. So we've been around over 3,000 years. At the time, Alexander the Great came and conquered most of the Mediterranean basin. If you remember from, I don't know if you studied that in school. And Alexander the Great had, his name was not really good as far as we're concerned. He wasn't really great as a conqueror. He conquered a lot of places. What was very unique about the Greek Empire, as it conquered many places around the known world of the time, was that they didn't rule by force. Many empires rule with fear and violence. But the Greek Empire had a different strategy to rule over the lands that they conquered. They called it, I don't know if they called it or we called it in retrospect, Hellenization. And Hellenization was a very powerful tool to transform the people you conquered into becoming part of your society. It was ruling by assimilation, right? If we assimilate you into us, then you'll become more like us. And so ultimately the same goal is achieved. You will dissolve and disappear and become one of us. Instead of us killing you for it, we'll just invite you in and help you disappear. How lovely. So that's what happened. The Greek Empire brought to us, and they ruled over our land for 160 years. And they brought their civilization to us, their way of dress, their way of life. And we were mesmerized, as many other lands and many other people were, as they fell under their rule, very mesmerized by their incredible society. They were very progressive and enlightened at the time, of course. And we were just in awe of everything that they brought to us. Think about, we were the people of the book since already back then, right? And they brought their philosophy, and it was just amazing. And all of these writers, the Odyssey, and all of these amazing storytellers that came with them as well. We were just taken by this incredible literature that we found. We were fascinated by this thing they called sports. We had no idea this kind of thing existed. They even invented the things that called the Olympic Games. I don't know if you heard of it. It was first introduced in Olympia, just south of here, not far. They invited us to learn about theater. That was a new thing as well. It was like, having TV suddenly when you didn't have a TV before. You could go to a place and people would act out a story. That was incredible. The first soap operas. Amazing. It was just amazing. Obviously, there were pioneers in political thought. And so you can imagine people who came under their rule just easily became assimilated. We started to dress like them. We started to talk like them, like Hebrew started to be forgotten. Because of that, our people started to speak the Greek language. We followed them when they conquered Egypt and built a city called Alexandria after the name of the emperor. And we moved there. We left our country because there were opportunities in this new city. It was becoming the New York City of the time. And so we were mesmerized and fascinated. We even started to name our kids. Think about it. Alexander. Right? I mean, one of the kings of Israel during the occupation was Alexander Yanai. The Yanai is still Hebrew, but Alexander, the king, was named after the person who conquered us. Right? I mean, imagine that. That's quite radical. But as most loved what Greek Empire brought, not everyone wanted to assimilate. Wow, it was like the Star Wars stories. You have the empire that is trying to conquer the whole galaxy, and there's this little group of resistance that is fighting the mighty empire, and that's really what happened on the 25th of the month, or the Hebrew month of Kislev. 25th is an interesting date to remember. The new ruler of the land, the new king, the new local king, decided that he had enough. Clearly, assimilation wasn't working. There were some Jews that weren't Greek yet. And he decided that he needed to return back to more forceful ways. And he started to behave horribly with the Jewish people that, wasn't assimilating. And he started to create edicts to erase us, to prevent us from practicing our faith, to prevent us from gathering, to congregate. Examples, he banned circumcision under penalty of death. You were no longer allowed to do that. Another example, he prevented us from studying our sacred scripture, the Torah specifically, because he understood that those were the ways that we kept the threads of our existence, of our life, of our nation, of our people. And at some point, that was not enough, so he decided to conquer Jerusalem, conquer the Holy Temple, and erase all Jewish presence from the temple, take down all the great menorah of the temple. This is a carving of the great menorah. This is not the menorah for Chanukah because it only has seven candle holders. So that's the 7-branched menorah of the Holy Temple. The candelabra that we use for Chanukah has 9. I'll tell you why, but so it's a little bit of a different one. But nonetheless, he took this one down to the basement of the temple and rededicated the temple to pagan worship. And one other thing he did is to sacrifice pigs on the Jewish altar in the temple when pigs were, as you well know in Judaism and in Islam, are prohibited. So it was a real desecration of a holiest site, and that created an immediate revolt. And the clan that revolted, because we were very clan-based civilization, was the clan of the Hashmonean family, big family, and they decided to take up arms and to fight the Greek armies, and they did that so in kind of a guerrilla warfare, meaning that they didn't fight the armies of the Greek Empire face to face, but they ambushed them. And they dealt blows to them and then disappeared in the mountains, in the hills, in the forest. And then every time they could find some soldiers, they would hit them and then disappear, hit them and then disappear. And they were like a hammer, right? You hit them with a hammer and then you disappear. You hit them with a hammer and then you disappear. This hammering became the nickname of the revolt. they came to be known as the Maccabees, the hammerers. So the Maccabees are those who hammer at the soldiers of the Greek Empire. And eventually they won. If you are in Israel and during Chanukah, you see little kids in the streets with those plastic hammers that make a lot of noise when you hit them, and they hit each other in the head with those. It's to remember the Maccabees. It makes a lot of very squeaky noise all over the city. It's really annoying, really annoying. I mean, past 7-year-old, it becomes annoying. Anyway, so the desecration of the temple happened on the 25th of Kislev, on the year 169 BCE. And the Maccabees started a war that lasted, let's say, the war itself lasted 3 years. And in 166 of BCE, the war was won. The Maccabees came into Jerusalem, rededicated the temple to Jewish worship. And they said, we need to celebrate this. And what are we going to do to celebrate this? Well, we're going to do what was the last holiday we missed. And the last holiday we just had missed, just a couple of months before, was the holiday of Sukkot. And the holiday of Sukkot lasts 8 days. And so they matched the holiday that became named as Chanukah to the holiday of Sukkot, which is why they are celebrated for 8 days. And they were great celebrations, and the whole city was, rejoicing. By the way, the word Chanukah is not the name of a holiday that we made up. Chanukah in Hebrew means dedication or rededication. So it was the holiday of the rededication, the Chanukah of the temple. And that's the name that stuck in history. So we're still celebrating Chanukah, meaning we're celebrating the rededication of the temple to Jewish worship. And we light today 8 candles to commemorate that victory and the celebration that followed. So that's the history of Chanukah. Let's move on to the religious aspect of Chanukah, because that came later. The desecration of the temple took place on the 25th of Kislev. The rededication of the temple on purpose, also by the Maccabees, took place on the 25th of Kislev. So they did it on purpose to match both historical events. And by the way, it goes without saying, but you understand that Chanukah, as the rededication of the temple, is the celebration of a military victory, right? And the safeguarding of our people. It's a national holiday. It's a we survived holiday. I know that because it falls in December most of the time, and I'll explain to you why. It's often conflated with Christmas. But as far as I can tell, Christmas is not about celebrating a military victory. So it's important to say, though they appear at the same time, they're not at all the same holidays. And I know we want to, feel good and and everybody's lighting light and so. Yes, but it's not the same reasons. Where it's not the same teachings and it's not the same deeper meaning. So I just want to make sure that I say that. The holiday itself, so now religiously talking, we know that holiday was happening thousands of years before even Judaism came around. And the reason is because back in pagan times, as we were very connected to the constellations and knew the movement of the stars, people really saw the dead of winter as a fight between the god of darkness and the god of light. They create all kinds of myths because they wanted to explain what was going on. And every year they saw that the sun was disappearing, going lower and lower on the horizon, and they feared that the sun would never rise up again. And they understood that time in the year as a time between the fight between the light and the darkness. And every time when December came around, it felt like darkness was going to win this year. This year, darkness was going to win. And the shorter the days and the darker the nights, and the colder, the more they decided that they needed to have something to reassure them. And they created these beautiful festivals of lights where they had huge bonfires all across Mesopotamia, where in that specific time of the year, during the solstice, they celebrated light. And then they saw that, December 25th, though it wasn't the case back then, there was no December, let alone December 25th, but they saw that the sun began to rise again on the horizon, and they could say, wow, finally, the God of light has won. The God of light is coming back. The fight has been won this year, yet again. We'll see what happens next year. We'll see what happens next year. And we know that was the case because in Roman times, there was a major celebration on the 25th of December called the Day of the Unconquerable Sun. Right? They had that holiday on December 25th, the Day of the Unconquerable Sun. Why? Because like everybody else, they saw that finally the sun was rising up in the horizon and the light was going to come back. The light has triumphed. And so they had this day on December 25th. I suspect that just like this year, where Chanukah and Christmas fall on the same day, that what became to be December 25th, just like the dates are converging this year, there was also the 25th of Kislev. And that was, there's a direct correlation there. Obviously, Christianity stole that from the Romans, from the pagans. As we stole from the pagans before us, so did the Christian fathers stole it from the Romans at the time, and decided that December 25th was no longer going to be the day of the unconquerable sun, but the day of the unconquerable sun. And so they decided, just like the sun is born again on December 25th, so is the sun. It's hard to keep track of both of them. Right? So the sun was born on December 25th because the sun is born again on December 25th. You see how that all happened? So Chanukah came to be a holiday because, again, this is not only the darkest, shortest days, but also the darkest nights. Chanukah always starts when the moon is disappeared also in the sky, and I said the thinnest that it is. These are the darkest nights in the shortest days, and so we have that holiday that came from those pagan times. But then how did it become a religious holiday? Because it was a Chanukah of a military victory by the Maccabees. And the Maccabees were hated by the rabbis. The rabbis were tasked after the destruction of the temple in 70 CE to rebuild Judaism into a portable religion. Because we used to have a temple, we used to go to Jerusalem, we used to have pilgrimages, but now there was no more temple. The Romans destroyed everything and killed everyone. How are we going to survive, and how is Judaism going to make it outside of the land of Israel? And so for 600-700 years, the rabbis talk among themselves over generations about how to transform Judaism into a portable religion that we could take wherever we go. Because now we were dispersed. We know that 3/4 of the Jews were massacred, crucified, murdered by the Romans. And the quarter that survived were sold into slavery throughout the Roman Empire, which is why you see Jews starting to be in Spain, in North Africa, in Rome, in Italy, and in other places that the Roman Empire dispersed. That's how the Jews, moved around, because they were brought there as slaves after the destructions of the temple. And so the rabbis have to recreate Judaism, and they have this book called the Talmud, in which that conversation is written down, and we still have it, and we can read about how they thought about creating Judaism so you can be Jewish in Paris or in Madrid or in Moscow, wherever you went. And that's how Judaism came to be the Judaism we know today. Now, in the Talmud, there is this conversation about the Shabbat candles. We are supposed to light candles on Friday night. And so the rabbis talk about how long they should burn, what they should be made of, what is the kosher way to have Shabbat candles. And in the middle of that, there's one rabbi who said, by the way, guys, what's Chanukah? Now we're already like in the 1st century of the Common Era. And one rabbi is asking all the others, what's Chanukah? As if they shouldn't know what Chanukah is. And this is in the context of, how do we create candles for Shabbat? Because the conversation is about how do we have candles for Chanukah? How do we continue to celebrate Chanukah? But what is Chanukah? Mahi Chanukah. What is Chanukah? And they have this conversation about, How can we make Chanukah a religious celebration? Why? Because the rabbis hated the Maccabees. Why did they hate the Maccabees? Because though the Maccabees won against the Greek Empire, they made two big mistakes. The first mistakes they made is that contrary to historically having a separation of church and state, which we had for 1,000 years in the land of Israel, they decided to take the priesthood and the kingship. They appointed themselves as kings and as high priests, and that was a big no-no. And that created a lot of unraveling and a lot of upset and a lot of little revolts inside the land of Israel against what they saw now, those conquerors that conquered that. Yes, they defeated the Greek Empire, but now they were doing things that were not kosher to do, and so there were revolts against them. And what did they do? Because they saw that they couldn't quench the revolt within, they invited this army that was, in Syria and in Turkey, in Lebanon, just up there. And they said, can you help us? So the kings, the Ashmonean kings, called up from their cell phone Vespasian. There was this guy, Vespasian. How do you say it? Vespasian, whatever. He called Vespasian, and they said, you're there with all of your armies. Can you come help us? And the Romans you want us to just take over the land without a fight? Sure, we'll do it. That saves us, time and money and effort. And so they waltzed in the land of Israel and conquered everything. And the Romans became the worst dictators and massacres of our people, as I mentioned earlier. And so we can imagine the rabbis didn't like the Maccabees, which is why, to this day, the book of Maccabees is not in the Jewish canon. They excommunicated them. And because of that, there's one rabbi is asking the others, what are we going to do about Chanukah? Why is there a question about what are we going to do about Chanukah? Because the rest of the nation is still celebrating this festival of light. And even we're telling them, that's the Maccabees, you should forget about them. No, we don't want to celebrate, but they still are doing it. So what did they do? Instead of fighting them, join them. And so what happened? They say, yes, it was a rededication of the temple. We're not going to celebrate just the military victory of those people we hate. We are going to transform the holiday into the holiday of a miracle. And so they create this amazing story of the miracle of Chanukah, whereby as they rededicated the temple, they found this little container of oil that was supposed to burn only for one night. But lo and behold, miracles of miracles, it lasted 8 days, the 8 days of the celebration of the holiday. Now, we can say, you know what, guys? We can celebrate Chanukah now, but now we're going to do it our way. We're going to do it religiously. We're going to do it to celebrate the religion and not the history too much. All right? That's what happened. There was actually, in the Talmud, there's a big argument between two rabbinic schools. The school of Rabbi Hillel is fighting the school of Rabbi Shammai. And they're arguing about how we should have the Chanukah candles. We should have 8 candles for each day, for sure, to celebrate the miracle of each day. One rabbi, Rabbi Shammai, and his schools and his disciples say, well, we should have 8 candles the first night, and then the second night, 7, 6, 5, 4, and the last night, the last candle. Why? Well, because historically, if there was, well, not if, because now they are saying, because there really was a can of oil, we can imagine that the first night, it was burning very bright. But then the second night, though it was still burning, it was burning a little less bright. And by the last night, it was probably burning very dimly. And so to align ourselves with the story or the history of Chanukah, we should start with 8 candles and end with 1. And then the school of Rabbi Hillel says, no, you're not getting what the story is about. Argument between Jewish rabbis just goes on for 700 years. And it's still going on, by the way. And Hillel and his supporters said, no, we should have 1 candle the first night and then grow 2, 3, 4 until the last night. We should have 8 candles. Why? Well, if we're celebrating the miracle and not the history, then the miracle of the first night is an amazing miracle that there was light for the first night. But we knew there was going to be for a first night because there was enough candle for enough oil for 1 night. So the miracle is really bigger the second night. and bigger the third night, and the fourth night. And so we should go 1, 2, 3, all the way to 8 candles on the last night. And though they argue, but who won? Well, Hillel had the final say. And that's how he won the day. He said, look, if you're going to go 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the kids are not going to like it. They're not going to go for that. They're not going to want to celebrate a holiday where it's less and less fun. Go with more and more fun. And that's how you won. That's how you won. Yes, I am completely making it up, but yes, it has to be. It has to be. Rabbis know if you want to have a strong congregation, you have to have the kids have fun. If not, it's not going to happen. Good. All right, what's the deeper teaching of Chanukah? So as you understand from the teachings of the religious aspect and also from the historical perspective, this is about the holiday of light. This is the holiday of light. This is the holiday of miracle. The holiday of miracle. Now, I know that we don't see miracles now, right? Miracles are things that happen in biblical times. Jesus walked on the water. Moses parted the Red Sea, although he was Charlton Heston. We know that, but... Right, miracles are just things that happened a long time ago, far away in a different galaxy. I read a study some years ago, an article that came out of the University of Oxford that proves statistically that in all probability, there isn't another Earth-like planet anywhere in the universe. No any Earth-like planet that supports the kind of intelligent life that we are and are surrounded with. They write in the article that the millions upon millions of infinitesimal evolutionary events that needed to take place, all at the right exact time and in the right exact order since the formation of the Earth some 4.5 billion years ago, when the Earth stood exactly at the distance it is sitting with regards to the sun, not too close, not too far, a little bit closer, too hot, a little bit farther, too cold, that the Earth is actually exactly, perfectly where it is. And in this perfect orbit around the sun, it makes it all statistically impossible to duplicate. It's just impossible. They point out in the article that it took single-cell organisms, so organisms one cell, more than 1 billion years to advance and become organisms with a nucleus. 1 billion years. And they point that the fact that this single step of evolution alone required more than 1 billion years of undisturbed environmental context. And we know with climate change how things really evolve. But for 1 billion years, the Earth stood exactly in the right atmosphere so that this transformation could happen. 1 billion years. And it's so statistically unlikely that this happened that it's impossible that it could replicate itself anywhere else in the universe. The article concludes that we might be the only intelligent species existing in the entire universe. And our existence statistically is an impossible miracle. Now, I'm going to bring it down from, the great cosmic story that I just told to you and me and here and now. I don't know your life story. I was born in Lyon, France. I lived on the French Riviera. I was never going to leave France. I lived in France until I graduated from high school, and then I moved to Israel. I was never going to move to Israel. I was a Frenchy French. I moved to Israel for I was an idealist. I lived in Israel for 10 years. I met this woman and eventually married her. She's from a very little known country. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called Minnesota. It's stuck in between Canada and the United States. And she came back home, and I somehow decided to follow her. And then from here, we moved to Seattle because her sister who lived here just had her third kid and called us for help because, they were outnumbered at that point. So we moved to Seattle because of that. And then I met this Rabbi Ted Falcon. There was no reason for me to do that. And yet I met this rabbi, and then I became a member of his community. And I know you know Rabbi Ted. And here I am standing in front of you on a Sunday morning, a rabbi giving this talk. That would have never happened. Me, for being a rabbi, living in America, speaking English more or less, never happened. The fact that I'm here standing in front of you is an impossible miracle, just like each of us and the earth. Now think about all of your stories, like mine, where you were born, the parents you had, where, when, because when you're born also impacts who you are. All the life twists and turns that you faced and all the detours that you took, the decision you made, the decision that other people made for you that shifted your trajectory. And here you are sitting in this chair on this Sunday morning or joining us from home on this Sunday morning. So my story multiplied by each of our stories. What is the impossibility of all of us being here right now talking and meeting each other? Do you see? It's impossible. It's an impossible miracle. Every single moment of your life is an impossible miracle. That you met the people you met, that you married the people you married. Come on! It's impossible. And here we are, unaware of the miracle of now. On Chanukah, we light our candles, 8 candles, but there's a teaching also in the Talmud that says that the light of a candle is the soul of a man, of a person. The light of a candle is the soul of a person. And we forget that. We forget. We are so, busy with the candles. We don't make sure the candles are put right and kindled in the right way, and we miss the underlying teaching. That the light we're kindling, anytime we kindle light, is a rekindling of our soul, of the inner being that we are. We get so wrapped up in the form that we forget the essence. We get so wrapped up in this form of us that we forget our inner essence. It reminds me of one of my teachers, Rabbi. His name is Muji. He teaches about the fact that, in the spirit of the holiday of giving, he says, each of us, you are a gift from God. Stop identifying with a wrapping paper. And so that's what this holiday is really for, to rekindle the light of our inner essence every day, and to remember that we are rekindling our soul, that we are bringing our soul back to the front, that we are communing with our inner self, inner being. We are a gift from God. Let's unpack it together. Amen.